Hey guys, so I'm going to show you the notes for Unit 7, Day 5 for you to try out. So at the top of the page is another quick refresher on SOHCAHTOA. So remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. That's what the SO part stands for. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. That's the CA. And tan is the TOA, opposite over adjacent. And you can use the notes that I have filled in as well to help you out with this. So for the first example, you're going to need a lot of room because you have to find three things. You have to find two sides and an angle measure. If I do the angle measure first, that's usually the fastest one to solve. So they want us to find angle B, okay? So remember that little square over here represents 90 degrees. So if I add 90 and 47, I get I get 137. And how much degrees do all angles in a triangle add up to be? 180. So I'm going to take 180 and I'm going to subtract 137, and I get 43 degrees. So what I did was 180 minus 137 for adding them together, and I got the answer for B. It's 43 degrees. Whoops, wrote that down wrong. Okay. So the angle is pretty easy to get because all angles in a triangle add up to 180. So you can just add those up and solve that there. So there's one answer. The sides are where the trigonomic functions are going to come into play. So whether you're going to use sine, cosine, or tangent. First, we should identify what each of the sides are in the triangle. So 15 is the hypotenuse. In relation to 47, A is opposite of that 47-degree angle, and B is adjacent to that 47-degree angle. So if I want to find A first, I've got O and H. So that is so. I'm going to have to use sine to find A. So I'm going to say sine of 47 degrees is equal to the opposite of 47-degree angle is A over the hypotenuse is 15. So this is like what we did the previous day. We're going to put it over 1 and we're going to cross multiply. So we have A equals 15 times the sine of 47. Now, if you have your phone on you, you can download an app on your phone that gives you a graphing calculator, so it's easy for you to punch all of this information in. It's called Calculate and then the number 84. Here, I'll write it down. Calculate 84. And it's a free app that where you can calculate the answer to these because you have to round to the nearest tenth. So when you're working on it in Alex, you can use that app. So if I punch that in, I'm going to punch in 15 times sine of 47, and I'll get an answer of 10.97, but they want you to round to the nearest tenth, so that would be 11.0. So there's A. So A is 11. Now to find little b, we have to look at what b represents and what the 15 represents because they gave that to us. So notice b is A and 15 is H. So we're going to use CA, which is cosine. So we're going to say the cosine of 47 degrees is equal to the adjacent is B over 15, which is the hypotenuse. Again, we're going to cross multiply and we'll get B is equal to 15 times cosine of 47. So again, punch that in the calculator that you download, or maybe you want to use the one that is on your phone. It might be a little trickier. And if I type that in, 15 times cosine of 47, I'll get B equals 10.2. So there you just found three things. You found 43 degrees for angle B. You found the side A is 11 and the other side B is 10.2. So these types of problems in Alex will definitely take you the longest. Let's try another example on the notes. So in this example on the notes, we have to find two of the sides again and the angle. So let's do the angle first. So we're trying to find angle A. We don't know how much angle A is. But remember, this little box means it's 90 degrees. So 90 plus another 50 is 140. So if I'm trying to find angle A, I'm going to say, okay, angle A is 180 because all three angles add up to be 180 in the triangle, minus 140, which is 40 degrees. There's your first answer. All right, so now let's go back and label our triangle. So in relation to this 50-degree angle right here, 14 would be considered the opposite. A would be considered the adjacent, and C would be considered the hypotenuse. So this is where you have to look at what they give you and what you have. So since they give you 14 and that's O, and let's say I try to find A first, then I have O and A is TOA. So I know I'm going to use tan. So I'm going to set up my equation. I say tan of 50 is equal to, opposite is 14 over the adjacent is little a. So again, we're still going to cross multiply. So you put the tan over 1 and watch what happens. We have 14 equals A times the tan of 50. Now, in order to solve for A, we're not done yet. In order to solve for A here, we have to get rid of the tan of 50. So to get rid of the tan of 50, we're going to have to divide by the tan of 50. Divide by the tan of 50 onto both sides because that gets rid of it here. Once we do that, we can then punch this into that calculator. Again, you probably want to download the graphing calculator, Calculate 84 app on your phone. So if I punch it in 14 divided by tan of 50, I'll get, we have to round to the nearest tenth, so it's 11.7. There's your second answer. Now we have to find C. So notice C represents the H, and 14 again represents the O. So OH is so. We're going to use sine. So we say sine of 50 is equal to, the opposite is 14 over the hypotenuse is C. So similar to the last one, we're going to put sine over 1, and we're going to cross multiply. So we get 14 is equal to C times the sine of 50. In order to get C by itself, we're going to have to divide by the sine of 50 because it's being multiplied. So we're going to do the opposite. And then we use our calculator. So once we punch that into calculator, we're going to divide 14 divided by sine of 50. And that's equal to 18.3. And there's our value for C. Again, these topics will definitely take you the longest in ALEKS to complete because there is a lot of work to them, as you can see. But refer back to my notes so that you can get help with it. On the next page of notes and the last page, you also are going to need to grab your calculator because in order to be able to solve for an angle, whenever you don't know what an angle is, whenever they call it X, you're going to have to use a calculator. And you're going to follow these 3 rules. So again, the app is called Calculate 84. Totally free, and it's easy to use. It's just like the calculator that you would use in the classroom. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to identify which trig function you want to use. So if we look at our example over in the top right here, in relation to X, 19 is opposite of it. Also in relation to X, 12 is the adjacent. So knowing that we have O and A, we know we're going to use TOA or tan. So we're going to say tan of X is equal to 19 over 12. Now we're going to do this second step, which says to, on your calculator, hit the second button and then the tan button. And then what you're going to do is you're going to punch in these numbers, 19 divided by 12. So if I hit second tan and I put in 19 divided by 12 into my calculator, it will pop out the answer for X. So X is going to equal, round to the nearest tenth, 57.7 degrees. So this particular topic needs a calculator in order to be able to solve this. So download that app real quick and you'll be able to use it. So in the next one, when you're trying to find an angle, we're going to use the second button on our calculator. So for this one, we have to identify what 13 and 11 are. 13 is the hypotenuse and 11 is adjacent to X. So that tells us that we're going to use cosine for ka. So we're going to say cosine of X is equal to, the adjacent is 11 and the hypotenuse is 13. So again, calculator, second, cosine, and then you punch in 11 divided by 13. So second cosine 11 divided by 13 equals, and x is going to be 32.2 degrees. Okay, and let's try one more. This one is just an example of what a word problem would look, but you're still trying to find an angle. If you can tell, if I zoom in a little bit, you can tell that you're still trying to find that little angle x. So again, we're going to have to use the second button, but we got to figure out what we have. They give us that in relation to x, they give us 196 is adjacent to x. And they also give us that 122 is opposite of the angle x. So that tells us that we're going to use TOA, or tan. So we say tan of x is equal to, opposite is 122 over adjacent, which is 196. So calculator, second, tan, and you're going to punch in a 122 divided by 196. So 122 divided by 196. And your calculator should come up with x equal to 31.9 degrees. So if it's asking for an angle, then you use the second and whatever the trigonomic function is that you figure out would be. All right, good luck.